Mr. President, as a part of my office's Expression Not Oppression initiative, I should say hashtag Expression Not Oppression initiative, I come to the floor today to highlight once again both a good news story with regards to human rights and a continuing challenge. First, let me begin by highlighting the good news. Aya Hijazi, who I have spoken about before on the floor, is an American Egyptian citizen who Egyptian officials had imprisoned on trumped-up charges almost 3 years ago. And she was released, and she was able to return home to the United States last week. I'm pleased that she was set free, as are many of my colleagues in the Senate who have been calling for the Egyptian authorities to release her. I know this was a topic of conversation during Egyptian President el-Sisi's visit to the United States 3 weeks ago. I want to also take this moment to thank the Trump administration for working to ensure her freedom. They were instrumental in this being possible. In fact, they were key, and they made it a priority in their private engagements with regards to President el-Sisi. Sadly, there are still many more political prisoners that remain jailed in Egypt. We here in Congress, as well as the administration, should continue to raise these issues with the Egyptian government until all of them are released, regardless of their citizenship status. As the leader of the free world, the United States must work to safeguard the freedoms and the liberties of all people. We must speak frankly with our allies, with our partners around the world, and we must work with governments to improve their human rights record. It is ultimately in America's national security interest to have stable democracies that observe the impartial rule of law and that respect the rights of their people. Now I would like to highlight the horrific reports on the pro-Russian Chechen government's brutal campaign against LGBT people and others over the last several weeks. Human Rights Watch recently reported, quote, law enforcement and security agency officials under the control of the ruthless head of the Chechen Republic, Ramzan Kadyrov, have rounded up dozens of men on suspicion of being gay, torturing and humiliating the victims, end quote. There are reports that at least 100 men have been arrested. At least 3 men have reportedly been killed since the campaign began. Chechen LGBT individuals, as well as those just suspected of being gay, have been taken to unofficial secret detention facilities where they have endured heinous abuses. They also, by the way, face the danger of so-called honor killings committed by their own relatives. It's instructive in that vein, a statement from the spokesman for the Chechen leader. Here's what he told the Russian news agency Interfax, quote, if such people existed in Chechnya, talking about gay men in particular and the LGBT community, this is his quote, if such people existed in Chechnya, law enforcement would not have to worry about them, as their own relatives would have sent them to where they could never return, end quote. Unfortunately, this is not a new reality for those living under the brutal tyranny of the Chechen leader, who, by the way, happens to be a loyal ally of Vladimir Putin. There have been reports in the past of similar abuses, although these reports seem to be the most brutal and should provoke anger in all of us. We should never, ever tolerate human rights violations against any person for their political views, their religious beliefs, their sexual orientation. According to reports today, the Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov said that Russian officials have not seen information to confirm the reports. Additionally, Putin's spokesman said, quote, we have no reason not to trust the head of the republic, talking about the Chechen Republic, until there are actual complaints in this regard. Not abstract, anonymous, but actual complaints, end quote. Well, the actual complaints are all around us. They've been well documented in publications throughout the world. But instead, Vladimir Putin is choosing to prop up Kadyrov, the Chechen brutal dictator, and prop up his brutal regime instead of holding them accountable. The United States and other responsible nations should do more to ensure that all people are protected and those who harm them are held responsible. We should use our voice on the global stage to call attention to these horrifying acts and to ensure that they are condemned in the appropriate way, and ultimately in the hopes that they will be stopped. Before I yield the floor, Mr. President, as a matter of privilege, I'm joined by a longtime staffer of mine who in about 20 minutes will end his employment with our office. Alex Burgos has worked for me since 2009 when he left a stable job with a stable paycheck to go work for an underdog candidate with no chance to win in the U.S. Senate race in Florida. For the last 8 years, he's been a critical member of our team. We're proud that he has moved on and is going to be working in another place outside of government where he'll be quite successful. We've watched him grow both in his professional career as well as his family. We're very proud of Alex because he's also from South Florida and grew up in a household and in a community, in the community I grew up in, and a story that we're quite familiar with. So we are very grateful for the service that he's provided to the state of Florida, to my office, to my campaigns before that, and we are proud of what I know he will achieve in the months and years to come. And I thought that given all the leadership he had provided our office over the years, I'm grateful that he had a chance to be here on the floor with us for this speech. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.